frequently in the work that I do, but also that science and religion aren't two philosophies that have to be at odds with each other. We have to remember that science is a form of knowledge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to us, a power to tap into, and a knowledge that He allows us to acquire with the skills that He has instilled in us. So again, the knowledge that we have, the knowledge that scientists get or obtain, is not from us, but it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He allows us to gain that knowledge. And whenever we sit down at any lecture or any discussion, we should all try and take something away from it. We may not even enjoy or even be interested in the topic at hand, but there's always something that we can learn from it. It may be too mundane for you, but we can all learn from something from everyone. Tonight there are two topics that I hope you can take from our lecture. These will help you guide your path on the path of Allah, guide your path in understanding our religion in a more improved fashion. So what are these topics? These are, the first one is knowledge. Revealed and acquired knowledge. So Allah bestows upon us many forms of knowledge. And two of these are revealed knowledge and acquired knowledge. Revealed knowledge is knowledge such as the Quran. It also includes all of the knowledge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taught us through His other prophets to mankind. It also includes all of the knowledge that we can see around us, like the sun rising in the east and providing us with warmth when when it's near, and coolness when it is far. Acquired knowledge, on the other hand, is knowledge that we obtain from observation or experimentation. Knowledge, again, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to us and given us the power to harness. So let's take an example. You've got a mango seed. This seed, when you plant it in the ground, has multiple different options or abilities. It can grow into a lush, fruit-bearing tree that gives us fruit that we can eat. Or it can turn into a twig and die and not give us what we need. The information is there. The seed just has to be able to harness the final product. In the same way, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put in human beings the capability of learning. And He's the one who gives us this ability. So let's take another example. Fire. Fire is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave to us. Okay? It was given to us. We didn't produce it. We didn't make it. It was given to us. However, we have to figure out how to recreate it when the winds were too strong, or it rained, and the fire went away. So I'm sure early in human species, someone saw a big rock or something falling down and hitting another rock, creating a spark. Someone thought, oh, that may be a way to reproduce that same fire. And so we learned how to start a fire. Then we took that knowledge of the fire, that it produced warmth and heat, and we thought that we could cook with it or heat up meat. So we learned how to cook with fire. However, we still had to learn more about it. We could learn to put it directly in the fire, not know when to take it out, and get something like that done. But not ever completely done. Or we could learn, keep it away from the fire a little bit, use the fire, and get a perfect piece of meat. And have that ability to eat and use that revealed knowledge without acquired knowledge. The second topic at hand that I hope that you learn from is interpretation, or interpretation of words. As many of us and many Muslims around the world, Arabic is not our first language. And even if we learn it and become fluent in it, we learn that the same words can have multiple meanings. We can translate a word into English and not get the full meaning of the word. For instance, if I said to you in 1000 BC, before the coming of Isa, I'm taking my transport to the farm to get milk for my family. At that time, you would consider the transport, that would be the transport world. Right? Now, move forward in time in 2024. I make that exact same comment. I'm taking my transport to the farm to get milk for my family. I'm taking that transport. Same word, different times, different meaning. We know that the transport on the left has 4 feet. We know that the transport on the right has 4 legs or round legs. They're not the same. One is a donkey or an animal, one is a car. However, the word that we used was the same. So you can understand that we can use the same word and get a different meaning of that word. So why do I bring these 2 topics up? What does it have to do with the topic at hand today? So we're going to talk about the human embryo and creation. And the reason why is the information that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us in the Quran about the formation of human being is revealed knowledge. That is in the Quran, it was revealed to us. He told us that. Okay? The information that we know now about that revealed knowledge is acquired knowledge. We acquired it through experimentation and observation. And both forms of those knowledge were bestowed upon us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we are at the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of what knowledge we can acquire. This is part of our belief in Allah, but we must also realize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us the capability to acquire this knowledge, and not just to believers, but to all humans. The knowledge that He gives to us is not just for Muslims, but it's for everyone. And when we talked about the second subject, it's important because some of the words that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed to us have multiple meanings. And we'll see that tonight in our lecture series. The same word that was revealed in the 7th century was interpreted according to one of the meanings. And today, that same word may be interpreted in another meaning because of the knowledge that we now understand about that word. Meaning that the word has the same definition and the meaning in the 7th century as it does today, but one of those meanings means more to us because of the knowledge we acquired. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke to people differently in the 7th century than He does to us in the 20th and 21st century. Alright, so let's get into the topic today. Let's first go back. Oh, did I revise it? Let's go back 1,500 years ago. 1,500 years ago to a time and place that didn't have any microscopes, test tubes, x-rays, MRIs, or laboratories as we know them today. A time when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke to humankind through an angel who brought revelation to an unlettered man, Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. A man who didn't know how to read or write. He didn't travel far from his place. He was not a philosopher, he was not a scientist. During his time, through some of these revelations, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us the tale of human creation. How fluid from a mother and father turned into a complete human being. The people of that time could only believe what they were being told. They had no way of proving if it was correct or incorrect. They really had no way of truly understanding what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was telling them, except that they had to believe. Fast forward 1,000 years. The microscope has been invented, scientific experiments and knowledge are growing, laboratories are much more intricate, and still, even despite this, people still believed at a time that the embryo of human creation was a miniature model in either the male or the female sperm or egg, and not a mix of both. All the way into the early 1900s. Again, why? Because they didn't have the technology. Now fast forward to the early 1900s, mid-1900s. Electron microscopy and labs were much, much more evolved, and we could see something the size of a grain of sand, something that you could never see before. And still invisible to our naked eye or even to ultrasound, but we were able to see it through other techniques. And this is where our story will begin tonight. So there are two surahs in the Quran that we should know about, that talk about creation. The first surah is Surah Mu'minun. And in verse 12 to 14, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ثُمَّ جَعَلْنَاهُ نُطْفَةً فِي قَرَارٍ مَعِينٍ ثُمَّ خَلَقْنَا النُّطْفَةَ عَلَقَةً فَخَلَقْنَا الْعَلَقَةَ مُضْغَةً فَخَلَقْنَا الْمُضْغَةَ عِظَامًا فَكَسَوْنَا الْعِظَامَ لَحْمًا ثُمَّ أَنشَأْنَاهُ خَلْقًا آخَرَ فَتَبَارَكَ اللَّهُ أَحْسَنُ الْخَالِقِينَ ثُمَّ إِنَّكُمْ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ لَمَيِّتُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, and indeed we created man from a drought of clay. Then we made him a drop in a secure dwelling place. Then of the drop we created a blood clot. Then of the blood clot we created a lump of flesh. Then of the lump of flesh we created bones, and we clothed the bones with flesh. Then we brought him into being as another creation. Blessed is God, the best of creators. And in Surah Al-Hajj, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals, and the translation goes, O mankind, if you are in doubt concerning the resurrection, remember we created you from dust, then from a drop, then from a blood clot, then from a lump of flesh, formed and unformed, that we may make clear for you. And we cause what we will to remain in the wombs for eternal appointment. Then we bring you forth as an infant, that you will reach maturity. And some are taken in death, and some are consigned to the most abject life. So after having known, they may know nothing. And thou seest the earth desiccated, but when we send down water upon it, it stirs and swells and produces every delightful kind.
We then placed him as a sperm drop in a place of settlement, firmly fixed. Then we made the drop into a alaqa. We will translate this word very soon. And then we changed the alaqa into a lump. Then we made out of that lump into bones. And then we clothed the bones with flesh. Then we caused him to grow and come into being and attain the definitive human form.
Now in these verses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed to us the stages of human development. Stages that someone, or most everyone, in the 6th or 7th century could not have even begun to comprehend. Before the advent of the microscope, and that was in the 1600s, and then later in the electron microscope, which occurred in the early 1900s, no human could possibly prove these above-mentioned stages of embryology. No way. How then could an unlettered person, our Prophet ﷺ, teach us this advanced knowledge, if not but revealed to him by the Most High, the Creator of all, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when we break down those verses that I mentioned, there are 5 words that I want you to remember, and we'll talk about them in a little bit. The first is nutfa. Nutfa is a drop or small part of fluid that is from the male and the female, the sperm and the ovum, and their natural fluid. The alqa is a blood clot or anything suspended or attached to a surface or leech-like. Again, 3 translations or meanings of the same word. And we'll get to why all 3 are the truth. Mudghah, or chewed substance. Izam, or skeleton. And then lamb, clothed with flesh. Now we're going to get back to these words and verses in just a moment. But before we get to the stage that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned, let us look at some of the theories of human creation that were very popular at and before the advent of the microscope. And those two theories are pre-formation or fertilization. Many scientists, up until the late 1800s, believed that there was a miniature human, a small human being, in the head of the sperm or in the body of the ovum, the egg. So either the male or the female was the one who decided the entire creation, not both. A theory that was pretty much the norm until we were able to prove otherwise with electron microscopy. But the Quran told us different. In 7th century, in Surah Al-Hujurat, verse 13, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, O mankind, truly we created you from a male and a female. And in Surah Al-Insan, verse 2, he said, verily we created man from nutfa, drops of mixed semen, both the discharge of man and woman. So the first theory that we knew up until almost the 1900s said it was just one. But the Quran told us thousands of years before that it's both. And so that is where the human creation, many of the non-Muslim scientists believe that human creation came from. And the opposite is the truth. And it's not just in the Quran, but Rasulullah also told us. And he mentioned in a hadith noted in Muslim and Ibn Ahmad that Rasulullah responded to a Jew when he was asked, O Muhammad, what is man created from? And Prophet ﷺ replied, O Jew, he is created from both. From the man's nutfa and from the woman's nutfa. Again, different than what we knew up until almost less than a century. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was telling us way before that. So now let's get into the details. Those 5 words that we have talked about. The human creation through the verses of the Quran and the science of embryology. So the first we're going to get into is the nutfa. Sorry about that. I skipped it. My bad. Can you go back and just say like, yeah.
The journey of life starts with a fascinating race. Starting with millions of sperm, only one, the fastest and the strongest, will reach the finish line. Some fall out of the race, getting lost in the rush through the narrow fallopian tubes, while some are stopped by natural obstacles which protect the woman's body from intruders. Those who make it closer to the end compete fiercely with each other. Together, they attack the egg cell. Their only goal is to be the first one to enter the egg. Only one will make it through, but the others simplify this mission by slowly dissolving the membrane of the egg. Finally, we have a winner. The winning sperm enters the egg and conception occurs. Half the man's and half the woman's chromosomes combine. This creates a unique DNA code which is needed to create new life. These combined chromosomes form the first cell of the new baby. This is now called the zygote. The zygote starts to divide into a cluster of cells and begins to travel to the friendly and safe habitat of the uterus. When the zygote is divided into a bubble of cells, a blastocyst is formed with an inner layer of cells making up the embryo and an outer layer which will protect and nourish the embryo. The blastocyst
beginning stage, or the stage of the nutfa. And as mentioned earlier in the above verse, we made him a drop in a secure dwelling place. And also, verily, we have created man from nutfa drops of mixed semen. So as we know from embryology, initially it is the meeting of the sperm of the man and the oocyte of the egg of the woman that produces that fertilized egg or that zygote. And as I mentioned above, initially science did not believe that both men and women were responsible for this creation. True revelation from Allah, and we received this true revelation from Allah. Now, Rasulullah also told us something also that goes into this whole aspect of fertilization. And it's mentioned in Sahih Muslim, and he said, not from all the fluid is the offspring created. And as we know, there's millions of spermatozoa that take their journey to the ovum. And also, there are over 1 to 2 million eggs or ovum that a female is born with. But it only takes one sperm and one egg to form that embryo, not all of it. Again, this is what the Rasul through his revelation told us thousands of years ago, 1,500 years ago, that we just learned in this century alone. Before we didn't know this knowledge, we were taught that only a small portion of the fluid from the mother and the father actually is needed for creation to occur. Now, after this phase, we go to the implantation. And in Surah Zumar, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, He creates you in your mother's womb, creation after creation in threefold darkness. The words really mean something here. When we look at these words, we know after the egg is fertilized, as we saw in that video, it travels down the fallopian tube and implants into the uterus of the mother's womb. We know that. Why did He need to tell us threefold darkness? Again, these are things that we may have just looked over, not really thought about. But when we look at the three veils of darkness, or the threefold darkness, we look at where is this veil. The first fold of darkness is the belly, is the abdominal cavity. It's that abdominal protection. The next is the uterus itself, the wall of the uterus, number 2. And then the third is the bag of fluid that the baby sits in, or the amnion and the chorion, that third bag. Again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us something that we have no way of understanding. And we could say, well, we're trying to make these words fit into this story. That what we know today, we're making it fit in. But from what I'm telling you, does it seem like we're fitting in, or we're actually proving something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying? In Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 223, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, your women are a tilt to you, so go unto your tilt as you will, but send forth for your swords. And this verse it can be interpreted in many different meanings, but one of the interpretations is it's like planting of a seed. Okay? You're planting a seed, and when we plant a seed into the land, we do it so we can gain the fruits of the seed. And in the same way, the sperm enters the ovum, just as you would plant a seed. And also the ovum or the egg, the fertilized egg, implants into the endometrium, or the lining of the uterus, just like planting a seed. Again, human embryology in the Quran that we never could have known until. The next stage is the stage that really got me really interested in this subject. Because it was so unbelievable that I couldn't believe what they were saying. The next stage is the alaqah. And the alaqah, as you probably read in multiple different translations, always comes as blood clot. And at the time, as I mentioned at the beginning, the word in Arabic can have many different meanings. It can mean blood clot. It can mean anything suspended or attached to the surface. Or it could mean leech-like. And during the times of the Prophet ﷺ, and many centuries afterwards, the meaning of alaqah was always taken as a blood clot. And at that time, again, remember we talked about acquired knowledge. Acquired knowledge is either through experimentation or observation, what you see. So if there is a definition of a word in Arabic, you're going to either use it as what you can see or what has been revealed to you by someone else, right? So we've got three different definitions or translations or meaning of the same word. When a fetus is miscarried or aborted at a very, very early stage in life, at 3 or 4 weeks, it looks like that. It's a blood clot, right? That doesn't look like anything other than a small blood clot. And that is what is seen even today to our eyes. Therefore, those people observed this and understood that that's what that meant. That was the first stages. As we learned from electron microscopy, the embryo is suspended in the endometrium via the body stalk of the embryo. And this will later become that umbilical cord which attaches the fetus to the placenta and supplies the blood and nutrients to the fetus. So if you look at these pictures, the first two are drawings. But they are drawings of the fetus or the embryo as it attaches to the uterine body or the embryo. And as you can see, there is a stalk that connects it. So what is it? What is it doing? It is suspended. It's hanging. Again, the translation and what we see in the second picture, if you look very closely, is actually an electron microscope, meaning that they looked at it from under a microscope. And you see the little circle in the middle that has a line pointing to it, that's your embryo. And you see a little line that's holding on. Again, suspended or attached. So the second definition also is correct. Because the embryo is attached and suspended in the uterine cavity. The next one is going to blow your mind. I promise you. I'm going to show you some pictures, and then we're going to talk about what it is. You got that picture there. You got that picture there. You got that picture there. And then you got that picture there. What do you think that top picture is?
Leech-like.
Looks like a leech, but what do you think it is?
It's the actual
An actual embryo. That top picture is an embryo. What do you think that picture below it is?
It's a leech.
It's a leech. I mean, this is not made up, guys. This is exactly how you would see it. Looking at those pictures, and again, that embryo, how big do you think that embryo is at this stage? We're talking in the first 4 weeks of development. How big do you think that embryo is?
Maybe an inch.
How big?
Inch.
No,
Not even.
not even an inch. Millimeters, 4 or 5 millimeters. The size of a granule of sand or rice. That's how small that is at this point in time. We have the technology now to see that. And look at how closely it resembles a normal sized leech that's about this big, right?
Right.
Now, can you guys tell me which is which on the right side?
Looks like a magnet.
Top one, you think that's leech or human? Human. Okay, top one is human. What about bottom one? Leech or human? Can't tell, can you? Let me show you something. Here you go. The bottom is a rendering colorized electron microscopy of what the fetus looks like, or what the, I'm sorry, not the fetus, the embryo looks like at this stage. And you see how closely it resembles the backsucker of a leech. 1,500 years ago, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Allah, leech-like. 1,500 years ago. And less than a century ago, we learned that they were the same. One and the same. Look the same. And that's where this whole process, in a sense, started. And that we can see the technology that we have, that we can see what an early 3 to 4 week. This is before people even know they're pregnant. This is before you even know that you're pregnant. This is what's going on. We know that from the Quran and so on. And how could this or anything else like this be but a revelation from Allah? Can't be that we made it up. It can't be that Greek philosophers told someone who came and told the prophet that this was going on. There were no scientists hanging out. Because if they were, we would know about it. If there was a companion that was so knowledgeable in this, it's not like we wouldn't know about it, right? But there was none. This was what was revealed to us in the prophet. The next stage is after the third or fourth week of the embryologic development, the embryo moves into the next phase. In Arabic, or as mentioned in the Quran, this is the mubda phase, or the stage. And the mubda is meaning of mubda in Arabic is a chewed like substance. So again, we're going to look at some electron microscopic images of the embryo at this stage, and you'll see what it looks like. So, this is the embryo after that next stage. And you see how there's little bumps along the background and things like that. You put a piece of gum in your mouth, and you put those you chew on it, it starts to look like that. You put them side by side, you've got the embryo on one side, and you've got a piece of gum on the other side. They look very similar, right? Very similar. Again, this is something you can't see unless you have the technology of today. So those little blocks that you see on the back that look like the chewed teeth are known as somites. They're the blocks of tissue that form in the embryo and give rise to many important structures in the body, especially the skeleton. And in Surah Al-Hajj that I mentioned earlier, one part of that 5th verse of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that from a lump of flesh, the mubda, formed and unformed, that we may make clear for you. Now we would probably just pass these words, formed and unformed. What does it really mean? Why do we need it? Why is it so important? However, as I told you, those little bumps are called somites. And those structures are of the primordial of organ systems like the vertebrae, the rib cage, the skeletal muscle, and the part of skin. But they are formed partially and still what we call undifferentiated. They have not taken their next form. And no one knows that, what each one of them is going to become, except who? Except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't even know to this day, with all the technology we have, what part of that somite or that block will turn into skin, cartilage, bones, things like that. We don't know that. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. And that's why He tells us form and unformed. Again, learning all of these things. So the above stages that we just went through occur in the first 40 days after conception. In Sahih Muslim Kitab al-Qadr, it is mentioned or noted, when 42 nights have passed over the drop, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends an angel to it, who shapes it and makes its ears, eyes, skin, flesh, and bone. And then it says, O Lord, is it male or female? And your Lord decides, and the angel reports. So one may question, how is it, again, someone would question this whole thing. How is it that the angel is asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala whether the fetus is male or female, which we know is distinguished at conception? We know that the X and the Y chromosome occurs at the very beginning. And you have to understand now, again, the appearance or the morphological appearance of the fetus, of the external genitalia, knowing if it's boy or girl, doesn't occur till about 12 weeks. At the earliest 9 or 10 weeks. You can't distinguish, no matter what, visually, ultrasound or anything like that. Even the technology that we have today, that we go and get a blood test, and that blood test tells you if you're having a boy or a girl, can't be done until 9 or 10 weeks. Again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us this long ago. It's not that He doesn't know if it's a boy or girl, but we're not going to know if it's a boy or girl. Then the next stage is the skeleton stage and the clothing of the flesh. And it is said that the embryo will begin those somites, and then after the formation of that, the skeleton, the muscles will begin to form and clothe the skeleton. During this stage, it is mostly cartilaginous bone, but these will form hard bones afterwards. So there's a lot of naysayers that try to say you got it all wrong. Your God got it all wrong because bones come after muscles. It's not like it's not true. We know scientifically that those cartilaginous pieces do turn into bone over time, but the basic building blocks are there, and then the muscle comes. So you've got the bones on the left side here, where the human body is now forming into and having those bones. And then it is clothed with the muscles. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that the bones come first and then the muscles, we realize that at the end of the 7th week, again, through technology, the beginning of the 8th, the muscles begin to take their place, positioned around the bone. And this is when you can start to see definitive movement in the baby. Again, what makes us move? How do we move? Muscles, right? If we were just skin and bones, would we be able to move? Tendons, muscles, right? That's what makes us move. If we can't move, if the baby's not moving, it must not have those parts, right? But when it starts to move, it starts to have those muscles. And so that's where that capability starts to come. Now, so there's the fetal period before this. I'm going to get to the fetal period. The fetal period is basically from the point of what we have already talked about, the embryology, all the way till delivery of the baby. Okay, this is when in Surah Al-Mu'min, then we brought him into being. At this point in development, the fetus begins to take shape. Now I'm going to use a different word. I'm going to start using fetus. Fetus is baby, basically. Embryo is before this. Embryo is small, all that structure that we talked about. Now you can start seeing the limbs, you can start seeing nails on the fingers and toes, you can see hair on the skin, the spontaneous movement that we had talked about and the reflex muscular contraction can now start being elicited by these external stimulus. And the general growth of the body and the various organs begins at this time. The next step, and this is as mentioned in Sayyid Bukhari, most scholars believe that the soul enters the human body at approximately 120 days. Each one of you is constituted in the womb of the mother for 40 days, and then he becomes a clot of thick blood for a similar period, and then a piece of flesh for a similar period. Then God sends an angel who is ordered to write 4 things. He is ordered to write down his deeds, his livelihood, the date of his death, and whether he will be blessed or wretched. Then the soul is breathed into. So now we kind of know that around 120 days, the soul comes into the body. And there's a reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us that. We'll talk to that kind of near the end of this, which we're getting to very close. Now, you may ask, why do we need to know these details? What's the purpose of this? And well, of course, the answer is Allah knows best. And Allah tells us, and He bestows us upon His knowledge to us that we can learn from. Knowledge that can help us make decisions based on His laws and not the laws made up by humans. If we understand how the body is being formed in those early days, we can learn how to properly take care of ourselves in those early days. What vitamins we need to eat, what we need to look for if we are having any problems, how we should handle also the situations such as fetal anomalies, abortion, incompatibility with life. These are situations that aren't explicitly written in the Quran or in the Sunnah, but we have to figure out a way to deal with these situations on a daily basis. And if we can't understand the basics of creation, then how do we properly guide people in these difficult decisions? So finally is this aspect of viability. Viability is basically if the baby is born at a certain period of time, meaning it comes out at a certain period of time, it will live. It may need some help, it may need oxygen, it may need more intensive care, but it will live. let me see. This is, like in 1980, if you look at this picture here, in the really the 60s, earlier than that, this chart is showing you what a viable baby would do if it would survive. So that first line at the very bottom is about 24, 25 months. Meaning that if the baby is born around 6 months, in early 60s, 80s, it had about a 3% chance of survival. Okay? That, over time with technology, got us to almost 70%. So babies that are born around 24 weeks have a very high, it's actually closer to 95% chance of survival. Okay? In that same period of time, that stage of viability, if you look at that number, is closer to 26, 27 weeks. That's 60 to 70%. Technology has given us the ability to keep these babies alive. Next, if you look at it, why am I bringing this? Does the Quran or Sunnah tell us anything about viability? Right? Again, we're talking about a baby's born at 6 months, will it live or not? And yes, it does. In Surah Al-Aqaf, verse 15, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, his mother carried him in travail and bore him in travail, and his gestation and weaning is 30 months. In Surah Luqman, verse 14, his mother bore him weakness upon weakness, and his weaning was 2 years. How many months is 2 years? 24. We got 30 months, we got 24 months. From the beginning to the end, or weaning is 30 months. But weaning or breastfeeding is 24 months. How many months does that leave us in between? 6 months. Are pregnancies 6 months? No, they're not. They're how many months? 9 months. So, where is this discrepancy? Where is this? We know pregnancies are 9 months. Every doctor is going to tell you that. Your due date is 9 months from now. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us 6 months. He's telling us the viability. A baby can be born at 6 months, 22, 24 weeks, and still survive. Because that is the minimum amount of time that's needed. No matter what we do today, other than having a artificial incubator, meaning out of the body into another incubator, the technology, one, is not there. And physiologically, meaning the way the body forms, cannot be there. If you look at this picture here, these are pictures of the lungs. Okay? And you look at, I know it's hard to tell, but the very beginning is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. That line is at about 16. The next line is about 24 weeks. What these pictures are showing are pictures of the bronchioles, or the insides of our lungs. Okay? Up till about 22, 24 weeks, the lungs aren't open. They're not formed. No matter what we do, they cannot take in that oxygen and convert it to the baby. It's just not physiologically possible. If a baby's bag of water breaks at, let's say, 16, 17 weeks, before this time occurs, that baby will not survive. There is nothing we can do in all of the technology that we have. And the reason why is that fluid, that amniotic fluid, needs to be there for that baby's lungs to blow up, in a sense. It's like a balloon. If you don't blow up a balloon, can it work? No. Same thing with our lungs. If we don't blow up our balloon, our lungs, they can't work. So that viability, or that early gestation that's born right at 20, 24 weeks, we knew that could be viable centuries ago. Our technology has allowed us to keep these babies alive. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us that was the possibility that you had. And so, one of the scary things that when I read this and I think about this is, this technology we've learned or harnessed over the last, let's say, 100 years. It took us 1,500 years to get to this point. There's really not much further we can go. So what it tells me is we could be near the end of our livelihoods because we're not going to get better. Technology can't get better to keep these babies alive. Again, the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are the laws. We can't break them. We can't bring people back to life once they die, right? Can't bring them back to life. So we can't keep things alive that can't be alive physiologically. So that is where that viability comes in. So, what are the take-home messages today? The very first take-home message is the miracle of the Quran is beyond our wildest dreams. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks to all humans from the beginning of time to the end of time. Before revelation of the Quran, He did this with His prophets to their people. For example, He taught Qabil through the actions of a crow how to bury his brother with her. He showed that to him. Once He sent the final prophet, Rasulullah, He had to leave us something to guide us. Because the revelation stopped. There wasn't another messenger who was going to come and teach us these things. He had to teach us all these things. So the information that He left us 1,500 years ago, it's going to continue to be interpreted until the day of judgment, and we and our future generations will continue to be guided by this wisdom and knowledge so that we can continue to follow His laws and His path. And then second take-home message is that let us remember that we can and we must continue to obtain knowledge using our observation and our skills of experimentation. We don't have to close ourselves out to the world around us. We don't have to be at odds with science. We have to remember that it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who has allowed us to learn these things. He has allowed us to experiment and observe and learn these things, His knowledge to us. We aren't just making it up as we go. Technology and science should not be feared, but embraced. We should make it a priority for not just ourselves, but also our children, to go into these fields so that they can continue to show all of those around them, their colleagues, their people, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us. And maybe through their findings, they will be able to continue to increase the dawah around the world and bring us more to the true path of Islam. So that ends my discussion. Hopefully, I'm sorry I talked a lot, and hopefully the things that I said didn't go over your heads or anything like that. And if they did, I'm here to kind of clear those up. So are there any questions, comments, anything to think about? Yes.
So when does the baby start moving?
Around 7 or 8 weeks.
And so you're saying that essentially the bone comes before the muscle,
Yes.
and so you can't move without the muscle, right?
Yeah.
So that's the time when the muscle comes, and that kind of proves that muscle comes after the bone as opposed to before the bone.
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to clear that.
Yes, that is true. Because you won't see movement in the baby until after the muscles are formed, but you see the skeleton before. So it's skeleton then muscle, and a lot of unfortunately, if you see a lot of people who try to disprove Islam, one of the greatness of the Quran is its miracles, and that's what we all kind of believe in. It's easy for us to believe in it because we understand that the Quran is the Word of God. But someone from outside is going to try to say, well, your book is wrong because of this. Because again, that's the whole thing. If it's wrong, then it can't be the Word of God, right? So if they try to disprove it, then they're going to do that. They're going to try to disprove it through these things. That, well, you're saying that bones come first and then the muscles. And they're going to say, well, they're not really bones, they're cartilage. Again, nuances. But those same pieces, structure, turn into bones, and they're already there. They give you that. They ossify or harden over the next 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks to the 12. Yes, ma'am.
You guys have a relationship?
Yeah. It should be on. Yes.
Hello?
Yep.
So I have a question about, so you're talking about the ensoulment
Mhm.
or, well,
When the soul comes into the body, yes.
actually before that.
Okay.
When the angel is shaping the baby's face, how does the angel do that?
I have no clue. That's, so again, I think you have to understand that that's basically what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is doing. You know, what you have to remember that when the conception occurs, the X and Y chromosome come together. Okay? Those chromosomes have all the genetic materials of what you, the baby's going to do. It's got the genetic materials of the eyes, the nose, the mouth, the lips. It's got everything there. Over time, those things will start to form over time. And that's usually further along in the gestation after this initial embryology. Again, if you look at a baby or a fetus at 5, 6, 7 weeks, put a million of them next to each other, they're all the same. They all look the same. Because again, there's no differentiation at that point. That differentiation starts to occur further along after these 48, 42 days. And again, that's what that hadith is saying. That hadith is basically saying, after a certain amount of time, the angel comes down, or in a sense, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts to differentiate and makes your skin and makes your ears. And that's what happens in the fetal stage. Those initial things are there, and then they start to form. So that's basically what it is. Yes, sir.
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
Thank you for your nice presentation. My question is, قال الله تعالى في سورة الملك قل هو الذي أنشأكم من غير السمع والأبصار والأفئدة قليلا ما تشكرون. That is mentioned for the sama, vision, and then listening, and then for. Is this person the same thing when the baby, the person in the baby, that means the listening first and then
Yes.
vision and then similar for what the
Exactly. So I didn't get into that aspect of it. That's, again, another more, you could continue going down the road. We could even started earlier with clay, you know, where we are made from clay, and we could have gone into what clay is made up of and what human beings are made up of, and the minerals and everything like that. Same thing like that, is as you get along, the formation and maturation of the organ systems is also mentioned in the Quran, like I just mentioned.
The second question, I'm sorry for that. You mentioned that when, for example, the approaching 7 months, that means complete 8 months, 6 months, he can produce them at least. If I'm not sure if the time we hear that for approaching 8 months, more than 6 months.
Okay,
If
so
approaching 8, for example, complete 7,
yes,
and approaching 8.
yes.
Some of one different time, I remember said there is danger if anyone, any baby produced in that time. Is this correct?
So basically what that means, at 24 weeks, at 6 months, baby can survive.
Okay.
Survive. That's all that baby can do. There's going to be a lot of complications for that baby. A lot of complications. Because again, the maturation of the organ systems doesn't start to occur until after that point. The baby can breathe, the baby can live, it may or may not be able to walk, but it will survive. Okay? As you get further along in gestation, closer to 8 months, then it's not just about surviving. It's about surviving and being a normal survival. That you can do the things that most all of us can do. That there's nothing holding you back. You can eat like the rest of us. You can see like the rest of us. Your brain structure. At 24 weeks, those things aren't there. Your gut is not mature enough so that a lot of complication can occur. Your eyes aren't mature enough so you may not be able to see as well. Your brain is not mature enough and you may have problems in your brain. So it's survivability or viability is different than a full natural life. As you get closer to 8 months, 9 months specifically, those problems start to go away. That's why a lot of times when doctors will say, like, let's say you came into the hospital and your bag of water broke at 24 weeks. 24 weeks, baby's going to live. Baby comes out, we're going to try to do everything that we can to keep that baby alive. However, we're going to try to keep you pregnant a lot longer. Why? Because that baby still needs to mature. And that maturation occurs much better inside than outside. Because once the baby comes outside, all that protection that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us about is gone. And now it's got to live its life outside without all of that protection. Lungs aren't mature, eyes aren't mature. If it stays in longer, all of those things start to get better. You got a question?
So, for the ensoulment, I don't know if you said it, but I believe it takes place after like the first trimester.
Yes, so around 120 days.
Yeah.
So that's about about 12, 13 weeks, sometimes 16 weeks around that time.
So,
But again, that concept of ensoulment, there are different interpretations even in Islam, in the fiqh. There's some interpretations that say all of this occurs in 40 days, and therefore ensoulment occurs at 40 days. And then there's some that, again, translate that saying or interpret that saying it needs to be 40, 40, 40, 120 days and things like that.
So some people, if we're Muslims and we're trying to make a decision about, let's say some people think that before the ensoulment period, maybe it's okay to abort the baby if it has some problems, but after that it wouldn't be because it would have a soul and it would have a life, right?
So that's that whole topic of abortion where again, it goes back to the fiqh and the interpretation of this. Overall, if you look at most of the scholars for abortion before ensoulment, most of them will say that there's still got to be some reason. It can't just be mutual. Okay. After ensoulment, all of the fiqh, all of them, unless it's in a sense the life of the mother is in jeopardy, then delivery or abortion of the baby is not acceptable. That's all across the board. Before, there's still caveats. So it's not just even before ensoulment you could just do it. There's still caveats to it, but it's in some of the fiqh, especially the Hanafi fiqh, it's more acceptable before that time.
And I heard you say earlier that the baby can start kicking at 7 to 8 weeks, but it doesn't have a soul until 12 weeks. So would that be considered like an involuntary movement, or?
Well, yeah, that's basic. So there's a difference between ensoulment and a creation. You know, the movement and all that stuff is being done. It's happening. It's usually involuntary. It's not like the baby wants to do something. It just happens. So that's where that it's like twitching. Muscles are twitching.
Your question is going back.
My question is about apoptosis, cell death.
Yeah.
At what stage does that happen with cell formation?
You mean in early embryonic?
Yes.
So apoptosis doesn't really start to occur in the embryonic outline. What's basically happening is it's converting from one type of cell to another type of cell.
So when that doesn't happen, and
Because you have to remember, we start from one cell,
right,
or two cells, actually. Two cells, not one cell. Two cells, and then they start to divide and form. And that constant division is going on. It's growing, growing, growing. So it's usually after the fact that all of this has happened that apoptosis, or death of the cells start to occur.
so what's happening that, why does that break down? So with like, so if a fetus or if you have a malformation,
Yeah.
why does it break down? Why does it not happen?
Gotcha. I don't think we as scientists really have a true answer to that. Okay. Basically, what I tell my patients when they come in and have these issues is the genetic material, the instructions that were in that DNA weren't blocked. Meaning that when the genetics came together and you started having cellular change, mitosis, meiosis, and things like that, because of the abnormalities in that cellular DNA, it stopped occurring. It was incorrect. And in a sense, the fetus or the embryo stops moving forward. We really don't know why that happens. In a sense, we know that it's just because of the genetics. But in a sense, the body realizes that I can't continue putting nutrients and things into it that I know is not going to produce the final. So it's almost like if you got 10 instructions to build a house, and on level 7, you got no more 8, 9, 10. That building goes up, now you could continue throwing things into it to try to build it and waste your energy. Or you can say, let me just, because I don't know what to do next, I'm just going to kind of finish it off. And that's basically what happened with miscarriages. Anything else?
So,
Walaikum assalam.
Jazakallah for a very nice talk. I learned a lot. My question, as I was telling the brother, is rather more boring. It's more of a historical question. We know that the preformed structure theory, which is that theory of a miniature baby growing, was wrong.
Yes.
The Muslims know it was wrong.
Yes.
Very early, the 7th century.
Yes.
The Islamic golden age of learning was 8th century to 14th century. So it's all that time when Muslims are publishing a lot of things, and Ibn Sina and all the other scientists are coming out. Why didn't these scientists correct the world and correct the record? Why did it take until the 19th century for a German scientist, I think one day or somebody, to come up with the epigenetic theory and all that? When the Muslims corrected way back in the 8th century.
I think if you look at the history between that time, like you said, the Muslim scholars, the Muslim scientists knew that it was fertilization. They knew that. And I think it has to do with just the whole philosophy of I'm right, you're wrong. You can't prove one or the other. Because there was no way to prove. You know, we have a Alhamdulillah book. Our proof is this. Someone else, even though it's almost arrogance, to be honest. It's arrogance in the sense that they did not want to, because if they said, yes, you're correct, what does that mean? Their religion is wrong. Your religion is right. Because your God is telling us the right things. It's unfortunately the history of mankind. You know, Judaism, Christianity, things like that. It's our religion is right, so we're going to stick to it. Just like the idea of ensoulment. For Catholics, it occurs at the time of conception. But if you look at Judaism and you look at Islam, basically the same religion as Christianity, little changes. That's not the case. It's at the earliest, if you look at the earliest forms, 40 days. So the whole idea of conception is something that's made up by the Catholics. Anything else? Walaikum assalam.
You mentioned a hadith when the angel comes and he discusses 4 matters. Your lifespan, when you're going to die, and whether happy or wretched. My question is, how do you reconcile that? And why would a person not even born be told he's going to be happy? And why would a person not even born be doomed to be wretched?
So I'm going to answer that question from a very unknowledgeable answer because I'm not a scholar. And that's probably one of the biggest questions of humanity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decides what is going to happen. He knows what's going to happen in the past and in the future. He knows what we're going to do, what we're not going to do. Right? So in a sense, he's basically telling us what we will do. Because that's just what is written. Now, we can ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us. But he already knows that. And that's a question that I think is much deeper than all of us could ever think about. It's a question and an answer that I don't think any scholar can truly say, because at the end of the day, we believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows everything, right? It also has to do with time. Time is a huge human creation. What is happening today, what is happening tomorrow, that's what we created. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's no time. He is, and He always will be. He's everywhere despite time. He is in the past, He's in the future. So that whole concept of predestination, in a sense, that we are predestined to do something. If I'm predestined to do something, then why should I do good? We don't know that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does. Yeah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that.
You answered it exactly what I think. Oh, I got it.
Yes, sir.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
So, is it doctor, when the installment happens, do you observe any physical differences?
I don't think so. I don't think so because that's I think, a more higher change, and that I think that's more of, are we at that point? Are we now pre-human in a sense? And that's where I think that whole, if you look at just the embryologic way, why, at least in my mind, why ensoulment wouldn't just occur at conception. Because you're just little cells, maybe only 2 cells, but really you're 2 cells, 4 cells. And the whole theory, in a sense, is once all of that stuff, once the structure's formed, then we can now make you into
Exactly.
anything else? Any other questions?
So your concept of person, would not incur into insolvency?
Yes.
There's a whole debate about when it becomes a person, when it's not a person.
Yep.
So your concept and your belief is when insolvency occurs.
Yes.
Before that,
it's not. Before that, it's not. You look at it, let me try to tell it this way. As a physician, especially in OBGYN, we have complications of pregnancy where the pregnancy doesn't get into the uterus. It gets into the foregut. Okay? That's not compatible with one. Not. That occurs really, 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 really easily. And by the time this aspect would occur, ensoulment would occur, whoever's got that is probably dead. There's no question about it. It's probably dead. Because that little pregnancy in that fallopian tube would have ruptured long before this. Okay. That, in a sense, if I thought that there was a soul that was a human, then in a sense, me saving that mom's life and removing that child is, in a sense, killing them. Right? Right? But that's not the case, because like I said, it's not possible for that pregnancy to proceed. There's no technology, and put this out there, there's no technology today, or ever will be, that you can take that 6, 8, 10, 12 cells, 100 cells from the fallopian tube and move it into the uterus. No matter what you hear on Fox or in other places, it's not possible. And again, that goes back to this whole overarching theme. What we know today through science and technology, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us 1,500 years ago. And we're just basically skimming the surface of that. I mean, because again, 1960s is when we started learning all these things. So that's pretty much all of our lives. Everyone who's here, except for the younger ones. Some of the, younger ones. But, we were close to all of us being there when we first found out these things.
so you just can't move it.
Nope, can't move. Yes.
So I have 2 questions. One is about, is there a way that anyone has ever run some kind of fMRI or something on a baby, like the fetus, embryo fetus, and you can see some activity going on in his brain?
I don't think brain at the embryologic level has been done, because you've got to remember, brain activity doesn't start till much later as well.
So when does it start the developmental?
Developmental stage, you're looking at probably about 14 to 16 weeks. Yeah.
Okay, so and then
I mean, of course, there's brain activity going on, but that what we think of as brain activity.
Okay. And second question, I saw at least one time it was about like in the end days before Qiyamah, there's going to be people that are going to start either interfering with creation or making their own creations, and that's going to be a sign of Qiyamah. And now we have CRISPR and gene editing technologies that they can put in embryos, fetuses, zygotes, and then or change. And like that's going to be like kind of close to like IVF as well. So
Yeah, so that's again, we get into the knowledge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. It's just like if you look back at it, magic, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us that magic is haram, right? But it's there. It exists. We need to stay away from it. Technology-wise, we can do a lot of things. Should we do them?
No.
You should stay away from it.
What about IVF? Do you think that's okay?
So again, it's one of those things that in vitro fertilization, if done the right way, if done the right way with the right things in mind and things like that, it is debatable. People will say it's debatable, but again, if you use it for the right reasons and the right purposes, then it could be accepted. And in a sense, what I'm saying is the right way is you're not, picking and choosing if you're having a boy or a girl, things like that. Yes, we can do that stuff. But isn't that going back to the same thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that the Arabs were told not to do in the infanticide of their daughters? Isn't that what we're doing if we're choosing one or the other? So again, yes, we have the technology to do it. Just like you said, we have the technology to create a lot of things. We can clone, we can clone animals, and we have, right? So what's the next step? Is cloning human beings. Yeah, we have the technology to do it. We could probably do it, but is it the right thing to do? And all of this is natural. This is everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you. This is nature. You don't mess with this. This is what it is. If you do it just the right way, the way that I've told you, this is what's going to happen. Now you can go and try to mess with that, but then, like you just said, that's what we're doing. Is we're getting closer and closer to the end times. Anything else, sisters, brothers? Yes.
I kind of got lost with the 6 months straight. How did you calculate that?
What's that?
The 6 months when you said.
So 30 to 24. So you take 30 as that verse in the Quran that says from conception or from the beginning to weaning is 30 months. And then you take the other verse that says that you should feed or feed your child for 24 months.
Oh.
So that's the 30, that's from there to 30 years. Exactly. Yes, ma'am.
So lungs are formed in like the last stage?
No. So the lungs are formed in those first 14 to 15 weeks. Okay, they start to form. Okay. However, the bronchioles or the alveoli, which are basically the end pieces of the lungs. So you've got your lungs, you start off with basically your trachea, it goes down and breaks down to the bronchi and the bronchioles, and then smaller and smaller. The oxygenation or the change of oxygenation to the blood occurs at the very, very, very last level, the alveoli. Basically, the blood is flowing on one side, and then you've got oxygen, and then it passes through. That occurs around about 20, 22 weeks, where surfactant is being formed, and that allows it to stay open. Before that, those alveoli would collapse. So if a baby came out and tried to breathe, it couldn't because they would collapse. So the formation occurs at that stage. Maturation, meaning the lungs fully develop that they don't need help to breathe, doesn't occur all the way to 38 weeks. Basically 2 weeks before your due date. So even if the baby is born at 34 weeks, 35 weeks, 36 weeks, and the reason why I use weeks instead of months is that we do everything by weeks. 35 weeks, 36 weeks, it still could have difficulty breathing. Meaning that the formation is there, they've got all the parts, everything's working, but it may not be able to fully oxygenate.
All right. I want to thank Dr. Obeid.
Let me just, my last thing. So, I just want to put my, if you all, especially for the women, as I said, I'm a one in the area. I think it's really important that community members who can help other community members do that. So if you ever need or have questions or concerns, if you want to see female providers, we also have female providers. My sister actually is one of our providers as well. So just if you need anything or anything like that, we're always available, even if it's just for help or questions or answers, we're always there. So that's all my information.
All right, so I want to thank Dr. Obeid for an awesome presentation. Give him a round of applause. All right, now, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for dinner. We'll have the event. After the event, we'll begin to move to the dining areas. We will have dinner, and then we'll reassemble here after dinner. So event, dinner, and then salat and Isha, inshallah. Okay, just one reminder, one request. No foyer dining for adults or children. If you have kids that like to assemble in the sitting area and eat, please don't do that. If you're an adult and you just want to be out in the area, please don't do that. We have the dining areas, the kitchens, and we also have some auxiliary areas right back here for the sisters, right here behind me for the brothers. So there's not enough room in the kitchen. Please take one of those areas. Do not dine in the entrance ways like on the stomach and walk over. All right, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, let's go have dinner.
Do we have ladies? We have women.
Who's on your team?
I'm looking at him like Daisy.
You know that you can go to the top of it because figure was this excuse you can straight man along the ball better.
So basically what I had happened, we had like a little in route. I threw it behind him at first. Second round, it was like a foot away from me. Threw it too hard for him. Then I had him on a go route. Ball is in his hands and he drops it. He just stayed quiet.
Even my glove is a little bit too much this way. Let's play over the corner. Gotcha.
Where were you at? Where? Oh.
ايوه ماشي مش بس كيف جاز من انا بنزلت ولا بس قدرت كنت لسه فتح لنا لسه ولا النار زريب اللي كان بده يشوف نفسه ايوه
You bring it down.
ايوه
Yeah, you bring it down. You want to use the space for rest.
There's two more
I can remind everybody to take that. Yeah. Thinking it.
Hindsight is 20/20.
Exactly. Good. What time is good? Good. I thought you were going to go for four.
I'll kind of see if we set up.
I don't dementia. No, this is on the 16th. Yeah.
All the science proof of the development. And a lot of the doctors nowadays are working, the non-Muslim doctors, they're working with their colleagues who are Muslim doctors. And I don't know if it is, but I heard that in their studies, they have to look at all of evidence from the past to see the proof of this. And I heard some of them that the Quran is presented. So how was it possible that these people still reject the other aspects of the deen? Because this concept can only come from doing prayer, and none of the books have this. You see what I'm saying? That's what I want to ask.
It's kind of similar to the question I asked. They get around things like, you are defining it so that it fits.
But without changing, that definition was there before you even knew what happened.
But they will
I don't
say,
understand.
they will say that they're defining, for example, mutha and halal now in language that fits.
You know, that language, when they're saying the people then didn't understand what those things meant.
So.
Wow. I see what you're saying. Yeah. That's what they're trying to say.
Nobody translated contemporary English. So they will say the biggest thing is you have interpreted this to have a meaning that fits the science. So it means that you're having this translation later. Maybe this word doesn't really mean this. That's okay. But there's certain words that are like rich that we know what rich looks like. Alex Salam.
Well, but they're secret. They're not, and they have not.
No, but
the evidence, they're
a lot
to try to put that there.
A lot of doctors he goes into far to say that exactly what it's saying. Doesn't even say that. So that people are continuously from these.
I think we are in different places. We're in different places with them. I think they're here, we're there.
I don't know. They were here, I guess, getting the kids, but I was.
The kids, yeah.
To the bathroom.
السلام عليكم. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. They didn't pray Isha yet, did it? لا.
We got some stuff out there, still a couple of people in there. Just a couple? Most of everybody's done, like everybody, like the people that are in there are usually eating dessert.
Okay, how many people? What I don't want to do is if we have 10, 12 people that try to present because I can't let me know. You don't have to let them know anything, just go see and let me know what you see.
Yeah, no, I'm letting them know. There's a bunch of people in there that are just like talking.
Let me know. Just let me know what they're doing. Who's that for? Oh, it was good. Well.
There is 15 people in the kitchen, and I didn't see exactly how many were there. They were eating.
هنصلي امتى ان شاء الله؟ 4 دقايق؟
Okay.
وكان حسنا
How's your back?
Before we pray, I just want to make sure that we thank the ladies who did all the cooking today. some of your wives and daughters, and I want to thank some of the ladies who work behind the scenes. So we have a group of ladies which I call affectionately the squad, and they do a lot of all of the background stuff to make these programs a success. Talking about Sister Aisha, Sister Iman, Sister Sonia, and Sister Sheila. And so they do a lot of the work and the heavy lifting. We also have the sisters, Sister Saul and Sister Susanna, who did the child care to make sure that it was quiet and children were gainfully employed and did great things while we were able to enjoy the lecture. Just want to make sure we thank the people who deserve to be thanked. As the Prophet said, "Man la yashkur an-nas la yashkur Allah." Whoever does not thank the people is not appropriately thanked Allah. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim Maliki Yawmiddin Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in Ihdina as-siratal mustaqim Siratal ladzina an'amta 'alayhim ghayril maghdubi 'alayhim وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ مِنْ سُلَالَةٍ مِّن طِينٍ ثُمَّ جَعَلْنَاهُ نُطْفَةً فِي قَرَارٍ مَّكِينٍ ثُمَّ خَلَقْنَا النُّطْفَةَ عَلَقَةً فَخَلَقْنَا الْعَلَقَةَ مُضْغَةً فخلقنا المضغة عظاما فكسونا العظام لحما ثم أنشأناه خلقا آخر فتبارك الله أحسن الخالقين ثم إنكم بعد ذلك لميتون ثم إنكم يوم القيامة تبعثون ولقد خلقنا فوقكم 7 طرائق وما كنا عن الخلق غافلين وأنزلنا من السماء ماء بقدر فأسكناه في الأرض وإنا على ذهاب به لقادرون وأنزلنا من السماء ماء بقدر فأسكناه في الأرض وإنا على ذهاب به لقادرون فأنشأنا به جنات من نخيل وأعناب لكم فيها فواكه كثيرة ومنها تأكلون وشجرة ومن عبرة نسقيكم مما في بطونها ولكم فيها منافع كثيرة ومنها تأكلون وعليها وعلى الفلك تحملون.
الله أكبر.
سمع الله لمن حمده.
الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا أرأيت الذي يكذب بالدين فذلك الذي يدعو اليتيم ولا يحض على طعام المسكين فويل للمصلين الذين هم عن صلاتهم ساهون الذين هم يراءون ويمنعون الماعون.
الله أكبر.
سمع الله لمن حمده.
الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Yeah. Muhammad Zaid. What did you say?